How we doing tonight? It's IB Nation Sports Talk. It is day 2 of the first game week of the 2023 college football season. We've got week 0 college football coming up this Saturday with Notre Dame, of course, and Navy play in Dublin. We'll have countdown to kickoff for you this weekend. There'll be a live post-game show. Of course, we've got our shows all week leading up to the game as well. I'm just sitting here hanging out by myself right now. I'm going to be joined here in just a minute with Bill Wagner from the Annapolis Capital Gazette and the Baltimore Sun. He's the longtime Navy football beat reporter / insider / whatever you want to call him right now. Vince is going to be with me in a little bit as well after I talk with Bill Wagner. Vince and I are going to hit some rapid fire. We've got a lot coming up in rapid fire. We've got some Sam Hartman NIL stuff. You may have seen during the show yesterday, the whole NIL beats thing dropped. And we talked about it kind of towards the end of the show. Hadn't really heard anything about it. And it was because they dropped a video on social media in the middle of the show. So we'll be talking about that a little bit. Some news out of Arizona State, where Pyne is not going to be the starting quarterback to start off the season. In fact, they are going with the young heralded freshman to start things off. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Jim Harbaugh. We've got some Marcus Freeman thoughts on both Gibran Payne and Jalen Sneed and more coming up in rapid fire. So we've already got a super chat, so we'll be addressing that in rapid fire as well. This is not live. Bill Wagner is not live. He is getting ready to fly to Dublin right now. We had to record yesterday morning, so Salty was asking if this is live, but it is not. So you will not be able to pose your questions to Bill Wagner in the chat, but you can sit back and listen and enjoy. He's got some good information as always. The guy's been doing it for like 30 years or something like that. So here's Bill Wagner. After that, Vince and I will be right here with you for some rapid fire. We're going to talk a little Navy right now as we get ready for this season opener. Bill Wagner from the Annapolis Capital Gazette and the Baltimore Sun. Bill, thanks as always for jumping on with us. It's always a hectic time of year as we segue out of training camp and get ready for the start of the season.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting, though. We're leaving for Ireland on Tuesday evening and looking forward to spending a week over there. And hopefully it'll be a good game. The last time these two teams opened the season in Dublin, Ireland, it was not a competitive game, 50-10, if I recall.
That is exactly right. And it's been, 11 years, I guess, since
2012.
Yeah, we've been waiting on this game for 3 years now at this point. Of course, it got canceled during the COVID season, and we finally got it. So I think it sounded like the biggest crowd maybe ever of Americans going to be over there in Ireland.
That's what they're saying, the largest movement of American citizens overseas for a sporting event.
Yeah, exactly. Should be a lot of fun. Well, as for Navy itself, as we know, Ken Niumatalolo, he is out after 15 years. We talked about him with you, I guess, late spring, early summer. Brian Newberry, the new head coach. And, whenever Notre Dame has had changes as head coach, we always see kind of a spike, in interest, renewed interest in the program. Have you seen that at that end with this change?
Absolutely. They are selling tickets like crazy. I think the fan base, first of all, I'm just going to say Ken Niumatalolo was a class act, and he was a great coach. The greatest coach in Navy history by record, right. Most winningest coach of all time, which says a lot because there have been some good ones. Paul Johnson, Eddie Erdelatz, Wayne Harden, many others. But George Welsh, can't leave him out. But, Ken Niumatalolo did a terrific job. Unfortunately, the ending was not positive. The 4 out of 5 seasons losing records, and just the worst part was that the offense was the problem. So that's kind of was his signature. So, sometimes change is good, Sean, and we'll see. But yes, exactly what you mentioned. There is a lot of fan interest, and they're excited. They're hoping this is a new beginning.
He is a first-time head coach. Does he feel like a first-time head coach to you, just from what you've experienced? I guess maybe you don't really find out until, you kind of get into the season maybe. But what do you think along those lines?
Well, so far he has carried himself like a head coach. He's a commanding presence, and he kind of was that way as the defensive coordinator for Navy for 4 years as DC. He was guy that was very well respected, commanded the room. So, yes, he has carried himself as like a head coach.
I guess the biggest thing from the Navy aspect, it seems like anyway, heading into this game, we talked about that quarterback situation when we had you on earlier, and you wrote last week that both senior Tai Lavatai and sophomore Blake Horvath could both play against Notre Dame this week. Is that still the case? Are you planning on seeing both of them this weekend?
That's what they're saying. I don't know if that's a diversionary tactic to force Notre Dame to have to prepare for two quarterbacks. I don't think Notre Dame really cares which quarterback is out there. I think their game plan will be relatively the same defensively. But, yeah, things have changed since I talked to you in the spring. At that time, Teddy Gleaton, another sophomore, had emerged from spring camp as the clear-cut number one. He had clearly beaten out Blake Horvath. And unfortunately, Teddy did not do the job in the classroom and had to go to summer school. And when Navy started practice in late July into August, he was in summer school, and Navy was practicing in the mornings. They always do, before classes start during what they considered training camp portion of preseason practice. They practice in the morning, and he couldn't attend practice because he's in summer school classes. So he took himself out of the picture for the time being. And Blake, and I think the case is, Sean, Blake and Teddy got all the reps in the spring. So you have a new offensive coordinator installing a new offense, new terminology, the whole nine. And Tai Lavatai and Xavier Arline, the two senior quarterbacks, did not participate in the spring. Tai was recovering from a knee injury. Xavier Arline was playing lacrosse. He had planned to kind of do double duty, playing lacrosse and do spring football, but he got hurt playing lacrosse, so that kind of put the nix on that. So he really didn't participate, maybe a few practices here and there. But the bottom line is Teddy Gleaton and Blake Horvath got all the repetitions during the spring, and they were way ahead of Tai and Xavier. So even with Teddy dropping out of the picture, Blake was still ahead of the two seniors. Now, Tai Lavatai, to his credit, has recovered well from the knee surgery. He's moving well. In fact, coaches think he's moving better now than he did before the knee surgery, and he has put himself right back in the picture. And I think it's a case where Tai Lavatai's got game experience. He's 19 career starts under his belt. Blake Horvath has never played a varsity minute. So I think my guess is that you start Tai Lavatai for the experience factor. Let Blake Horvath watch from the sidelines with the headset for a little while and get acclimated to the atmosphere, and then, give Blake a chance. Because I think Blake is number one. I mean, they list them co-starters on the depth chart, but I think the case is that Blake kind of is number one, and it's just the lack of experience is a concern.
Interesting. And you talked about Gleaton with the new wrinkles with the offense. Again, you told us that to expect more passing in this Navy option. At the core of it, it's still going to be a triple option attack, but with some passing wrinkles, and that Gleaton was the better passer. Is that the case with Horvath as well? Is he the better thrower between the two?
I think Gleaton's a better thrower than Horvath. The question is Horvath a better thrower
than Lavatai? Yeah, I didn't phrase that right.
So, I mean, Tai throws a decent ball. The guy that's not a very good passer is Xavier Arline. He's more of a running quarterback. But I think, Tai and Blake can execute the passing game. It's not overly intricate. It's quick passes. It's, flares and screens, anything that anyone would consider short passing routes designed to not be, what they would call safe throws, not dangerous, not high danger throws. So, I think they both should be able to execute it. We're all interested to see what this quick passing game is and how much are they really going to throw, because, in the end, they are a triple option team. You're still going to get the fullback dive, the quarterback keep, and the slot back pitch.
We got to see some shotgun with this offense.
Their plan is to be able to seamlessly go from shotgun to under center.
Interesting. We'll see some of that. All right. I think one of the big questions some Notre Dame fans have when it comes to this specific matchup against Navy is, again, triple option. The clock is always running. You're grinding it out. And we've got these new clock rules this season where the clock's not going to stop, for a first down like it has forever. So what do you think? What impact do you think that potentially has on this game?
Well, Navy will always have to do a time possession, ball control type of offense. That's the name of the game for Navy. Keep the other team's offense off the field. I think the point about the passing is that when you get into second and long and third and long, you need to be able to complete a pass to move the chains.
Right.
And that's been the problem, is that teams have been they are getting better at stopping the option for a variety of reasons. Number one, you can't cut block on the perimeter anymore. They've changed a lot of blocking rules that have hurt. All these blocking rules were specifically aimed at option teams. So they've changed blocking rules to make it harder to block the triple option. But then also, Navy's now in a conference and they're playing teams over and over and over again. And these teams are now building option periods into their practice routine, and they're getting better at defending it. So what happens is, you run the fullback dive and you get a yard, or maybe if it's a loss. Second down, you run it again, and that's what frustrates fans when they, run the fullback dive 2 times in a row and it gains 2 yards. But suddenly it's 3rd and 8. The fullback dive or the pitch or any kind of running play is not likely to get you 8 yards. You need to be able to throw the ball. And I think that's what they're saying. We need to become a proficient passing team. We're still going to do the option, but when we need to throw, we need to be able to execute passing and get completions.
They've got 9 starters back on defense, Navy does, and Notre Dame's got big receivers everywhere and a quarterback that can get them the ball. Do you think that is the matchup Navy is most concerned about, or is it something else going into this game?
Well, I think Navy is always concerned about the Notre Dame passing game. We saw what happened in the first half of last year's game, and now to Navy's credit, in the second half, they've stonewalled Notre Dame.
Yep.
Notre Dame was held scoreless and had 12 total yards of offense, but part of that is that Navy basically just said all-out blitz. They just blitzed the house every down. So no, you're talking about Sam Hartman and a very talented core of wide receivers and tight ends. Always good tight ends at Notre Dame. They have another pro tight end this year. It seems like every single tight end that I've covered Notre Dame, every single tight end they've had, ended up in the NFL.
Not pro yet, but by the time that a couple of them get some reps, I think here in a year or two, you're probably going to be talking about another one. So yeah.
But to answer your question, the biggest problem for Navy last year was they gave up too many long passing plays. It was a huge issue. Passes, completions of 30, 40, 50 plus yards, too many times thrown over their heads for touchdowns. You saw it against Notre Dame. It's got to be fixed. They went to work. They hired Eric Lewis, who is the son of Sherman Lewis, a well-known NFL coach. Eric Lewis was hired and given the title of defensive passing game coordinator, and it's been his task to fix the secondary to the point where they do not give up big plays.
Do you think starting the season with this game favors either team in this matchup?
I do a podcast with former Navy quarterback Keenan Reynolds and former Navy fullback Eric Catani, 2 of the greatest players in the triple option era history. And we were talking about that on the podcast just last night as we were doing our season preview. It's hard to say. I mean, based on the last time they played in a season opener, no. Right. But the answer would be it doesn't favor Navy. But I think, it's Notre Dame's first game, and they would have some kinks to work out. New offensive coordinator, new quarterback. Maybe you catch Notre Dame not in total sync as far as their offense is concerned. I don't know. But Navy is usually accustomed to opening against a football championship subdivision school. They're playing Wagner in their second game at home. That's usually who Navy opens with to kind of get their feet wet. So I don't know the answer to that. We'll see.
My last question for you, all this conference realignment obviously going on. If something we know about the Notre Dame Navy relationship that dates back, what happened in World War II and how Navy helped keep Notre Dame open and all those things. If Notre Dame were forced into a conference in the next few years and something were to happen to the Notre Dame Navy series, what's the impact that would have on Navy football?
Oh, it'd be huge. It's a big revenue generator every year. You're guaranteed, nice payout for Navy playing a nationally televised game against a big-time opponent. But more than that, just the history and tradition. I mean, I would hate to see it happen. I think it's been good for both schools. I don't know. I think Notre Dame appreciates its rivalry with Navy for a lot of reasons. I think as long as Jack Swarbrick is around, they'll keep playing. But I mean, I think Jack is due to retire, isn't he?
He is. In less than a year, he'll be gone.
That kind of concerns me because Jack was indoctrinated in, and he was told by the higher ups and various administrators, this is something that's very important. He made sure there was never a question that Notre Dame and Navy would play while Jack was AD. So that is a concern when you get a new AD in who may not appreciate the rivalry. And I don't know at this point where the administration is, but I would hope that they could keep it going. But you never know with all of this conference realignment, but we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, you've got rivalries, unfortunately, dropping by the wayside with all this realignment. That's kind of, Bill, I appreciate your time as always. Safe travels to you. Enjoy your time in Ireland.
Thanks a lot, Sean. It's good to join you.
All right. You too. Take care. Thumbs up, Bill Wagner at the end. You can tell that he was enjoying life in the sunshine over the weekend. He was connecting from his beach house. I don't know if it was exactly Maryland. I don't know exactly where it was, but he told me that he had played some golf and hit the beach house out there. Rough life being an Annapolis Capital Gazette guy, I guess, huh?
I had no idea that was that came with the territory, man. To get a beach house and get to play some golf, and man, they're paying out there better than they're paying around here.
Where do I get the beach house? He's been there a long time. I mean, he's like the guy on the Navy beat, and there might be a couple other people in the area who provide some coverage of that Navy beat, but there's not a whole lot more.
Yeah,
not a whole lot more. So,
and he gets to go to Ireland. So
that's good job security if you're Bill Wagner. Right?
Touche to him for all of that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, interesting there. I will be curious. Talking to him about Jack Swarbrick and the potential for the future of the Notre Dame Navy rivalry. I mean, Notre Dame values its independence. We know that. And Pete Bavacqua, like Jack Swarbrick, is also a Notre Dame alum. So I think that, it's like as we talk about Notre Dame's independence going forward, I think that there is big value in having a Notre Dame alum who will be the athletic director. And as Bill was saying, Jack, I think because of the fact that he is a Notre Dame alum, he appreciates the significance of the Notre Dame Navy rivalry. And I think that Pete Bavacqua moving into that chair will likely have a lot of the same feelings about that as another Notre Dame alum.
They just need to send him the article that IB posted today about the history of the Navy Notre Dame rivalry. Just send him the article if he needs any, reminder of how important it was and why it went down and all of those different things. So, I think he would get a lot of pushback if it became public that they wanted to, forego the Navy Notre Dame rivalry.
Right. And again, the way I pose the question is, if Notre Dame is forced into a conference and then something, I don't think Notre Dame is an independent. I don't think that there's
no way
going to be. I don't think the series is going to be broken. But you just never know with conference realignment and what schedules are going to look like and all these different things. That's where one thing with Navy is. This game has been played at different points in the season. It hasn't, it's like this is one of the few times that it has been played as a season opener. We typically see it in the middle of the season, but it's all over the place. So
the California series where one's
exactly
October,
where you're hooked
at the
mid-October, late November all the time. Yeah, exactly. There's some flexibility there with Navy, and these games get played in the big NFL stadiums when Notre Dame goes out east, and that's a big moneymaker for Navy athletics.
No doubt. They're not playing. They're not playing at Navy's home field because they just wouldn't fit. It just wouldn't work, and so they usually play in Baltimore. That kind of a thing, and it's a huge moneymaker. And that, I mean, let's be honest, people. Yes, there's the history. Yes, there's the rivalry. All of those things. At the end of the day. It is about the money, baby. Economics.
That's what it's all about. That's right. Exactly right. Well, glad to have everyone along here tonight. If you're watching live on YouTube, of course, I'll just take this opportunity to say, smash that like button right now. Do it proudly, hit it. We're going to jump into rapid fire. Are you ready for rapid fire, Vince?
I'm always ready for rapid fire, Sean. I'm always ready.
I'm going to go a little curveball and throw the super chat. Joseph Conity, we appreciate your super chat. We'll start with this. Do you think with a very experienced quarterback, Notre Dame can be very diverse with play calling, or with inexperienced receivers, will they be conservative?
I think it's going to be the former, to be honest with you. I think the quarterback is what you use to dictate your play calling for the most part, right? Because he's the one pulling the strings. He's the one calling the signals, not so to speak. He is the one calling the signals. And he can bring along a receiving core. He can bring along a running back, unit. The quarterback is the catalyst, right? And you had to have a very, for lack of a better term, a dumbed down playbook last year, because the quarterback could only accomplish so much.
There's no way around it.
It didn't matter what the receivers were doing. That's the way it had to be.
Yep.
That is not the case right now. I think these receivers are plenty talented enough to be able to execute whatever they need to execute. There doesn't have to be option routes and things of that nature. They can just be, this is the play, this is what you run. They know it, they do it. It's all about the quarterback. And so I think the experienced quarterback trumps all here.
We're going to talk about Drew Pyne and Arizona State here in just a second. But if I'm going to spin this specific to this game, since it is Notre Dame Navy starting up the season, we know what Drew Pyne looked like in the second half against Navy last year. There were throws that needed to be made. There were hot reads that needed to be made that were not made in either case. Sam Hartman's going to make those. This is year 6 for Sam Hartman.
Exactly.
It was game number 6 or 7 for Drew Pyne. Like there's just like the difference in the experience is the Pacific Ocean between what you're going to get from Sam Hartman and his ability to make quick decisions and what you got from Drew Pyne and Tyler Buckner last year as well, for that matter. So yeah, this is a quarterback-driven team this year. It's been a long time since Notre Dame could say that, but this is a quarterback-driven team. You don't have to hide the quarterback. You don't have to protect the quarterback from certain situations. This is a quarterback who can go out and make plays, and we've talked about it before. I think when the lights go on for this guy and it's game time, you're going to see a precision. You're going to see a slicer and dicer out there in Sam Hartman, and you're going to see the receivers continually grow throughout this season. I don't think it's going to be – now there might be some kind of micro stuff where some growth is going to have to be made and all that kind of stuff for certain guys in certain situations. But I think this receiving core is going to grow throughout the season, having a guy like Sam Hartman pulling the trigger.
Look, let me be as cliche as possible here. He's going to be a coach on the field. Like, he can execute pretty much whatever you need him to execute, and he will bring the guys along with him along the way. And we kind of talked about this in the summertime, Sean. It's it's like the chicken and the egg thing. Did the receivers make Sam Hartman, or did Sam Hartman make the receivers? I tend to fall on the Sam Hartman made the receivers side of things. There was some talent there. Don't get me wrong.
He had a 1,000-yard receiver last year who was a 6th-round pick. Didn't go till the 6th round.
There you go.
Think about that.
I mean, there you go. If Tobias Merriweather has a 1,000-yard season, I will bet you $100 he's not going in the 6th round. He's going higher than that. You know what I mean? Like, let's just be honest here. There's more talent at Notre Dame than there is at Wake Forest. That's not exactly breaking news, right? And so logic tells you that Sam Hartman is going to be able to perform just fine at Notre Dame, if not better than he did when he was at Wake Forest.
Yep. Going back to the Navy question, Johnny says, as a Naval ROTC grad, I hope the game continues for as long as possible.
Agreed. And I'm not a Naval ROTC grad, and I hope it continues as long as possible.
That's right. So now we're going to talk about Drew Pyne. Jaden
Okay.
Rashada, the heralded freshman who signed this big whopping or at least $1 million plus NIL deal with Florida before the Florida conservative or whatever it was called, couldn't come through and make actual payment on it. He's at Arizona State now. And Drew Pyne had been running through the spring and through most of training camp as the number one guy on the quarterback depth chart down there at Florida State. He was battling with a guy named Trenton Bourget. I don't know exactly if I'm saying that name right.
Yeah,
Bourget.
There's a lot of vowels and
Bourget.
consonants in there.
Yeah. But it is Rashada who has emerged and is going to be Arizona State's starting quarterback. Not this week, of course, because they don't play this week, but next week. Now, as some people have pointed out, Drew Pyne, and Salty was asking, Pyne did injure his hamstring about 10 days ago, and he apparently still has not recovered from that. So that at least contributed to this situation. But Rashada, again, they were going to go with one of the more veteran guys, Pyne or this Bourget guy, but instead it's going to be the big hype freshman Rashada who's going to be the starter. But as we look at this situation for Drew Pyne, Vince, what do you think about his prospects for the future?
It's unfortunate for Drew because I do think the way it sounds, the article that you sent me, from ESPN, because look, I have not been following the Arizona State quarterback battle.
I hadn't either. Literally saw it before the show started myself.
Right. So it has not been first and foremost for me. But it sounds like, based on that article, that he was planning on starting Drew Pyne or this other kid and then eventually handing the reins over to Rashada. So it felt like he was going to be a placeholder, which I don't think that does anything for his career either, right? And so it just turns out that because they went and got this Rashada kid because the NIL thing fell apart at Florida, I don't think Drew Pyne goes to Arizona State if he knows that the Rashada kid is going. And I think yet another curveball for Drew Pyne in his career, and the transfer portal, because that's what it was with Rashada. He transferred out, right? The transfer portal has once again bitten Drew Pyne in the rear, and it just ended up being a bad choice to go to Arizona State in hindsight. And I feel bad for him because it doesn't look like he's going to be starting anytime soon.
Arizona State is not playing for this year. They've got a new head coach, and they're playing for down the road. But again, when you've got a guy like this, Drew Pyne's best opportunity was probably going to be this year to go out there, perform well. Hopefully for him, keep the freshman off the field as long as possible, and then see what happens next year. But with this, again, it's not necessarily his play that's going to keep him out. He injured his hamstring.
Sure.
He's still injured, not 100% from that hamstring. So they've got to make a decision, and this is what they decided to do. But
I feel
what
bad
it's probably going to mean for Drew Pyne is, unless you would expect Rashada, as talented as he is, to have some ups and downs at some point. So maybe that gives Pyne some opportunity to get out there and play. But otherwise, you've still got at least 2 more years of this guy, and I would expect that Drew Pyne is going to be looking for a new home again here. Pretty soon.
I can almost guarantee it, right? And I mean, first they bring in Sam Hartman to play over him. Now this Rashada kid is playing over him. Like, he just can't catch a break. And I thought him going from Notre Dame to Arizona State was actually a pretty good move from a Power 5 to a Power 5, essentially. Yeah. I know Notre Dame's not in a conference, blah, blah, blah. But he's still in a Power 5. After this, I don't know that another Power 5 team is going to give him a shot. Maybe they do. Maybe they do. There's a lot of Power 5 teams that I'm sure would love to have a guy with 10 starts under his belt at Notre Dame.
It's not going to be Colorado.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
but he's going to be finding a new place. There's no doubt about that. My expectation is that it would probably be in a group of 5 school.
See, and this is the other thing. 2 guys started at quarterback last year for Notre Dame. Tyler Buchner, Drew Pyne. They both transferred elsewhere. And as Chi-Town says, the 2 quarterback transfers from Notre Dame are both turning out to be bad decisions. Neither one of them is going to be a starter, at least at the start of the season.
And I would say Drew, initially, it felt like he made a good decision, right? Tyler initially felt like he made a bad decision, right? I mean, with all the facts that you had on the table when you made that transfer, I think we all kind of second guessed the Tyler Buchner transfer, right? I mean, it just didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense outside the fact that Tommy Rees was down there. The Drew Pyne one was like, oh, okay, well, Arizona State's a dumpster fire, so you got a pretty good opportunity to play, down there. And then this Rashada thing happened, and like, it's unfortunate for Drew because I felt like he made a good decision. The timing of his decision was terrible, right? Before the bowl game and all of that.
Yes.
I don't like that. But the destination, I thought, was going to be a good landing spot for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just too bad.
I'm sure, like people are saying, UConn, Cincinnati, transfer portal, there's always going to be a demand. And Pyne, he's got some game film out there. Arizona State obviously saw something that they liked. They brought him in. His record says 8-2 as a Notre Dame starting quarterback. So that plays in his favor. I'm sure
Notre Dame,
I'm sure he'll land on his feet someplace, whether it's, again, Boston College, Cincinnati, wherever it happens to be. I think there are going to be some what you call lower level Power 5
that's true.
situations
That'll
probably give him some opportunities again.
Yeah.
Sucks that it ended on an injury. What I did read, though, and again, not seeing any video or film of the actual play, but what I read, I can't remember if it was in that ESPN article or a different one. I think I saw two different articles about it, was that he was rolling out, and rather than throwing the ball downfield, he decided to tuck it and run, and that's when he pulled his hamstring.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
And it's like,
I mean,
we were just talking yesterday about the lack of soft tissue injuries at Notre Dame during fall camp.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Yes, we
Here
did.
You got the guy who was going to be your starting quarterback pulling his hamstring in the Arizona heat, no less. Like, you would think that their muscles would be all limbered up and, in that 100+ degree heat down there. Man.
It's unfortunate. That's for sure. It's unfortunate for both, frankly, for Buchner and Pyne, that they're both going to be holding the clipboard, this season. But, things are looking good for Notre Dame. So
that's right.
Onward push, baby.
And they're looking good for Notre Dame because they got a guy named Sam Hartman. And he did another NIL gift announcement to his team yesterday. And it happened while Vince and I were doing the show.
Of course.
You mentioned Beats by Dre at the end of the show. And I was like, I haven't heard about this one. And then we get off the show and you text me. It's like, oh, this happened 30 minutes ago while we were doing the show. No wonder we hadn't heard about it.
Of course.
So he did this Beats announcement yesterday, couple days, 2 or 3 days after doing the Under Armour shoe announcement. And in both cases, it's like, hey, as long as I can do it with the boys and all that kind of stuff. It is so, here's some Under Armour gifts for my NIL deal that I signed with Under Armour. And here's some Beats headphones for this NIL deal that I signed with Beats by Dre. So Vince, I think what made this more unique is just the fact that Notre Dame shared both of these on their social media platforms. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember, now NIL hasn't been around that long, but I don't remember any such other sort of, if you want to call it a humble brag, like, here's Sam Hartman with this big NIL deal. Yeah. He's sharing that with his team. So what do you think about this?
I love it, frankly. I love it. We gave them a hard time yesterday because it was like, okay, Under Armour, like, don't you get free stuff from them all the time anyway? But then the Beats thing is that's pretty massive. Those things are like $300 a pop, and you figure on average about 100 players on the roster, maybe a little bit more. I mean, I'm not a math major, but that's $30,000 worth of stuff that he's giving guys just for a plane ride over to Dublin, right? And so I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome, and I think it's awesome that Notre Dame is publicizing it. They are doing NIL the way NIL was supposed to be done in the first place. That was the whole reason for NIL, name, image, and likeness, all of that. It's not a blank check to recruits. It's prove yourself on the field, sign a deal, make some money, help out some people. And the big name at Notre Dame is Sam Hartman, obviously, and he's hooking up, the other players on the team. You think that's not going to ingratiate them to him? Are you kidding me? Like, hey, maybe I'll play a little harder for this guy. I know that's very superficial, but it's like, hey, this guy's looking out for me. I'm definitely going to look out for him. Now, obviously, they voted him as a captain, so he's obviously got the leadership skills and all of that. This is 100% awesome by Notre Dame, too, because you don't think that they're going to be sending that out to Deuce Knight or, all the other recruits out there. Like,
yes,
this is how NIL is supposed to be done, people, and Notre Dame is doing it.
This is my point of asking this question without phrasing it that way, but we're thinking along the exact same lines, and John B is saying the same thing. They're showing all the kids that there are opportunities to be had. It's not Sam Hartman just signed an NIL deal with Beats, and like Sam with some official release on his Instagram or whatever. Here's Sam Hartman standing up in front of his team. It's at least a seemingly organic moment, and they're capturing it on video and showing him out there. Hey, fellas, I got my new, again, it's a little bit of a humble brag, but it's like, hey, I got my Under Armour deal. I got my Beats deal. But it's the perfect way, because we've talked about this before. We know there are NIL deals that Notre Dame players have. We just haven't heard that much about them.
Right.
Unless, like in the case of Audric Estime, I don't know about you, but in my Facebook feed, I've got Audric Estime ads in the shirt that he's pimping out there. But and I know he did a deal with Dick's a while back, but otherwise, you really haven't heard a whole lot about what exactly these guys are doing in NIL. So now here's Sam Hartman. He's got 2 major deals with Under Armour and Beats in a matter of days that he's reeling in big money for doing. And again, they're not doing like an official press release on this. It's just, here's Sam Hartman with his team making the announcement. Hey guys, here's your shoes. Here's your headphones. And it's telling the world you can come to Notre Dame and get a similar NIL deal without telling them you can come to Notre Dame and get a similar NIL.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. I mean, you're actually using your social media to get the word out for what you want out there, right? They're not, and look, Notre Dame's never going to pay recruits. It's never going to happen. And I'm okay with that, because if you have any confidence in yourself that you're going to go out there and be successful, the NIL deals are there for you. I mean, they're right there. And so I love this. I think this makes a ton of sense. I'm glad that Notre Dame's on board with it, right? And putting it out there, because now the fans can see also that there are NIL deals to be had at Notre Dame. Because I think the common knowledge of fans was that Notre Dame just doesn't do it. They're ignoring that it exists.
That's the narrative.
That's the narrative. That's 100% right. It's clearly out there, folks, right? It's clearly out there. There are multiple NIL deals for the players on this team, and now they're putting it out there. Thank you. Finally, they're putting it out there.
Yep. I guess I'm disappointed that Audric hasn't got up in front of him and said, hey guys,
here's some shirts.
Here's a Shamrock polo.
Vincent should be getting up there handing out cartons of milk. Like there's certain things these guys could be doing, help them out here. Let's go.
That's right. Okay, so we got a little bit more Marcus Freeman. Here's some of his thoughts on running back Gibran Payne, who is number 2 on the depth chart behind Audric Estime.
Just consistency. I talk to every couple of days. We talk about grades from practice, right? We grade practice, and we talk about who can you trust, who's dependable, and that's to me where Gibran has truly elevated himself in terms of that running back room. It has nothing to do with talent matters. He wouldn't be here if he wasn't talented, but there might be some guys that you might say, hey, he might be a tad bit more talented, but we want to play guys that we trust and are dependable, and that's what Gibran has shown in protection and taking care of the football and doing his job. He's been really good. I think he's graded higher than anybody in that room. But we'll need them all. We'll need Jadarian Price. We'll need Devin Ford. We're going to need Jeremiah Love. All those guys, to me, will help us.
So what do you think, Vince? What does Payne's ascension to number 2 on the running back depth chart say to you?
It's exactly what he said. It's about consistency, right? Like, we know as coaches, you want the guy that is going to be able to make the plays when they need to be made, as far as blitz pickup and all of that. They're confident that Gibran Payne is that guy right now, right? They're confident that he's going to be assignment sound. If you watch his high school film, like this kid can pick him up and put him down. Like he's got talent. And it appears, right? I mean, he had a good spring, he had a good fall. He's been ascending. And so I think he's going to be a really good number 2 if he is in fact the number 2. There's a lot of ors, obviously on the depth chart. But I think he could be a really, really good number 2. I think that it could almost be a situation where a lot of his carries come in the first half, and then you kind of hand it off to Estime in the second half. Very similar to what they did in the past, except this time now Estime will get the start. He'll get a few more first half carries than he did in the past, that kind of a thing. But I still think Estime's your closer, right? And so I think Gibran Payne can be a great number 2. I really do.
I do. I think that besides Audric Estime, he's the most complete back that they have right now. Those everyone that they have in that room can do a little bit of something, but I think just the development that Payne has shown, and that's the big thing. Like, I think that Marcus Freeman in a fairly short amount of time has shown that he can run a developmental college football program. Like when you look at what's going on the defensive line, look at what's going on with the offensive line, safety, some other positions, linebackers are coming along. But I think the fact that Payne has gone from the last guy, the bottom of the depth chart a year ago at this time, to playing in the last 4 games of the season to preserve that season of eligibility, to where he is now, number 2. He does a little bit of everything really well, and I think that he deserves to be in that spot. Again, the other guys, you're going to see, as
you're going to see all of them.
You might see at least 4, if not all 5 of them out there Saturday, just depending on what they decide to do with Jeremiah Love and maybe, weather conditions. Who knows exactly how some of that stuff is going to factor in. But I think it's great for the position group, and I think it's great for the program as a whole to see where he is right now and how he's elevated himself in a fairly short amount of time.
Well, Gibran Payne was kind of the forgotten guy, right? I mean, of this whole group, because, Jeremiah Love was the new guy. Jadarian Price was, oh man, it was like the what if from last year, he's coming back from injury. And then you have Devin Ford, who's kind of a mystery because he's the transfer. And of course, Audric Estime. It just felt like Gibran Payne was the forgotten man. And he just put the blinders on and just went to work and just got better and better. And like I said, had a great spring, had a great fall, and now he's sitting at number 2. So I love it.
We got used to seeing like 14 personnel and, Derek is saying all at once, 50 personnel.
You could technically,
I think
5 linemen,
really
quarterback, and then 5 running backs, I guess.
Might be getting a little bit crazy.
It's kind of a loaded backfield. One of them would have to be on the line of scrimmage, but figure that out.
Yep, that's exactly right. Now, one of everyone's favorites, Jalen Sneed.
Yes.
Here's some Freeman comments on that.
Yeah, he's going to help us in a lot of different ways. He is a talented football player, and we will find ways to get him on the field because he makes us better when he's on the field. And so we're going to need all those guys in the linebacker room. And what we do with Jaylen, where we play him, it depends on each week. But Jalen Sneed's going to play for us because he makes us a better team when he's out there.
I don't know that Jalen Sneed has necessarily Tobias Merriweather type expectations, especially externally. Maybe, self expectations, but externally. But at the same time, the expectations are really high. So what are your expectations for what we're going to see from him this year?
Well, Jesse and I did a bold predictions show one of the days that you weren't here.
Okay.
And one of my bold predictions for defense was about Jalen Sneed. And it is a bold prediction. Granted, it is a bold prediction. But there's a smidgen of reality attached to it. I said that Jalen Sneed is going to lead the team in sacks.
Okay. Interesting.
Now, the reason I went there is because I think he is going to be the linebacker that is going to be out there predominantly on passing downs. And I think they're going to trigger him. I think he's going to come off the edge. I think he's going to blitz up the middle. I think they're going to use him to put a lot of pressure on the opposing quarterback. So I think he's going to get a bunch of sacks this year because he's going to be put in position to do that. Now, is he going to lead the team? Well, that remains to be seen. But I think he's going to be dynamic in the role that they are going to have him in. right now, Jalen Sneed is not a first and second down linebacker. That's just not who he is yet. He's not. I don't want him sitting there making reads and things like that. He's not ready for that yet.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the best use of his talent is what you were talking about, getting to the quarterback, moving him around out there on the field and letting him pressure in different ways, reading what's going on, like you said, on first and second down and pass coverage and stuff like that is still not quite his thing yet. Now, maybe that comes over the course of the season. I think he's going to have a fair amount of sacks. Ooh, sack leader, though.
I know. It's a bold prediction. It's a bold prediction. It's supposed to be fun. We're supposed to have fun with it, you know, but yeah. Can you imagine the craziness that would ensue from the fans if Jalen Sneed was the leading sack getter for Notre Dame?
Oh, my gosh. But then it's going to turn into, why aren't we seeing more of Jalen Sneed?
Of course. Yes.
Yeah. That's going to be kind of fun to sort of spot him in those situations and see where he is, how they use him, where they're lining him up, and all that different kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think pressuring the quarterback is the best use of his tools. And I think that at the very least, when you have guys like him and Botello out there at the same time and some of these other guys, the prospects are pretty enticing.
They are. And you're not going to be able to see, like, I would be surprised if you see a dynamic Jalen Sneed against Navy. You know what I mean? But
right.
Because that's just not the game, in my opinion, that is for him, you know. But the rest of them, yes, absolutely.
Yep. Joseph with another super chat. Thank you very much, sir. We do appreciate it. If Notre Dame struggles a bit but wins their first 4 games, do they make any changes at starting positions, offensive or defensive struggles?
And he followed up with this. He says,
I didn't see that.
Yeah, will they make any changes on offense and defense for Ohio State? To clarify my super chat. So
okay. So it's not a
coaches
supper
chat? What's that?
I couldn't resist. It's not a supper chat.
You're right.
I'm kidding, Joseph.
Oh, that's good stuff, though. I didn't even notice. See, I bolted right through it. So there you go. Coaches are always evaluating everything, right? And if there are weaknesses that they perceive on offense or defense, they're not going to be shy to make a change. I mean, one of the things that we've talked about with this team is the amazing amount of depth, right, throughout the whole roster. And so I don't think they're going to be afraid to make changes. It's not a situation where, like, when I was coaching, we didn't really have a second string that was pushing the first string. And it's like, well, this is what we got, right?
It's struggling, but who are you going to go to?
Right.
That's right.
Exactly.
I think there'll be some options.
Yes.
If there are some struggles.
That's absolutely right. And so if in certain places, if there are struggles, there's going to be a guy ready in the wings, ready to take over. And I really don't think this staff is going to be afraid to make changes, Sean. If there are glaring weaknesses to this team where they think the backup is going to be better, I think they pull the trigger. Now, I don't know if it'll be specifically after week 4, right before Ohio State, but they're in constant evaluation mode.
I think you're exactly right. And I do think that there is much more depth across the board. And I think that's fairly apparent just standing out there and watching some of those practices, like the fact that the defensive line is going to go 10 deep, the fact that 5 running backs are probably going to play. And even though they're still trying to continue to build some depth in that wide receiver room, there is talent that's starting to stack there, and you're going to see a lot of guys contribute there. Just across the, I mean, look at the cornerbacks in the secondary. Look at where that group is right now compared to a couple of years ago. There's a lot more depth, and you know why there's a lot more depth, even though there are some people who keep trying to say that Marcus Freeman is not recruiting that much better than Brian Kelly recruited in his time at Notre Dame. We keep coming back to this. If you look at that blue chip ratio, the percentage of 4- and 5-star guys that are signed in a given year, Marcus Freeman is above 70% BK. His ratio was around 50%. That's a 20% increase. And that's a big part of the reason. I talked about the development earlier, but a big part of the reason why you're starting to see more depth across the board is the fact that they are recruiting better, especially at those specific skill position groups that have been question marks for years: cornerback, wide receiver, and running back even. Now, there have been some good running backs, obviously. Don't get me wrong. But again, when you look at that, at the talent top to bottom in that running back room, it's a lot different now than it was a couple years ago.
Well, I mean, just look at how many freshmen and sophomores are in the 2 deep. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
How many freshmen and sophomores are in the 2 deep? That's Marcus Freeman, guys. I mean, that's where your talent is coming from. I mean, you mentioned the cornerback position, right? What's the 2 deep look like? There's 2 sophomores and a freshman in the 2 deep out of 4 guys. So yes, but the recruiting is so much better at those skill positions. And then obviously wide receiver. I mean, wide receiver, running back, corner, like it's just so much depth of talent there.
Tyler, thank you for the super chat. He says, who would we love to see score the first touchdown for Notre Dame?
Personally, I would love it to be a bomb to Chris Tyree. That's what I want. I want my guy Chris Tyree, the guy we were praying was going to get more touches last year, to get the first touchdown of the year, and I want him to sign the ball when he's done and dedicate it to Tommy Rees.
That's not a bad one. I would just go with Tobias, because one catch last year after all the clamoring, want to see Tobias. He's going to be a starter now this year. To see a deep pass to Tobias Merriweather, see him take it to the house. You know, it would be even better if it's his first catch of the season.
I know, right? 2 catches, 2 touchdowns.
Exactly. So that's who I would go with.
I like it.
Tobias Merriweather.
Somebody's going to get loose deep. And I know your guest from earlier, Bill, right? I know that he said that they brought in a new guy to prevent the big play and all of that. You can try to prevent the big play all you want with these receivers and this quarterback. There's going to be big plays on Saturday. Period.
Yeah. Everywhere. There's going to be a lot of them, I think.
Yeah.
Again, Navy has a good defense. We saw that from them last year. They've got 9 of 11 guys back from last year. But I just think that we're between the quarterback position and where Notre Dame is right now at the receiver position compared to a year ago, I think it's going to be a really tough matchup.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
really
is.
Tough
And
matchup.
You're going to have a quarterback that's not going to be afraid to get rid of the ball, check it down when they're blitzing and doing all these different things. It just didn't take place in the second half. I mean, bottom line, right? And I don't mean to keep beating a dead horse, but it's just a different situation at quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. Notre Dame spread against the midshipmen, 20.5 points. Scale of 1 to 10. How confident are you they'll cover?
12. I'm extremely confident.
Very confident.
That they are going to cover 20.5. I think it's going to be I'm actually surprised that number is as low as it is. If I'm being honest, I think that is an easy cover. Somebody texted me yesterday actually asking me about the 20.5 spread. I said, ride it hard all day, because I would take that one in a heartbeat. And I said, whatever the over-under is, either for Notre Dame or total points, take the over.
I agree. I mean, it's basically, are they going to win by at least 3 touchdowns? And I think they do. I mean, think about it. If it's 35-14, that's your 3 touchdowns right there. And that's just about the lead they had last year at halftime.
Right.
Before they didn't score in the second half because of all the issues, the aforementioned issues with the quarterback and the ability or inability to make reads and everything else. I just think I think that you keep pouring it on. You don't worry about, now we've got to run the football and all these different things. I just think that especially after last year, you let your quarterback, whatever is working for you, you keep riding it. And I think that they're going to be able to ride. I think they're still going to be able to run the ball better than 66 yards like they had last year. But
yeah,
I think that I think that they will win fairly comfortably in this game.
Right.
So Michigan has self-imposed a 3-game suspension to open the season for head coach Jim Harbaugh. The statement from Michigan AD Ward Manuel said, quote, "Today's announcement is our way of addressing mistakes that our department has agreed to in an attempt to further that process," end quote. So is the 3 games sufficient to you, Vince D'Addario?
First of all, the fact that they're suspending him for 3 games is It's a nice round number, I guess, but like it's East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green.
Right.
But at the same time, the schedule's pretty easy. They could pretty much win most of these games without having Jim Harbaugh on the sideline. They could have been like, you know what? We're going to suspend him 11 games and just have him come back for the Ohio State game, and they'd probably still be okay. I don't know that the punishment necessarily fits the crime. I think the crime itself was stupid. Like it was dumb.
Well, the real crime
about it.
The real crime is lying about
Correct.
what was a stupid crime. If he would have just admitted to it, he wouldn't be in the situation he's in right now.
So dumb. Like, and it's so typical Jim Harbaugh to make this little problem this massive issue, right? And then they go ahead and announce the 3-game suspension without actually talking to the NCAA. Like, I mean, it's just a comedy of errors and very typical of the Michigan program. So does it fit? Yeah, probably, because he lied and he's an idiot. It's just not going to make any difference. It's just not going to make any difference whatsoever.
I like how in this statement they say they're addressing the mistakes our department has agreed to. In other words, they're not really admitting to everything the NCAA is saying. It's like, well, we've agreed to this, and so we think this is worth 3 games. And, of course, they originally said 4 games, and then there wasn't going to be a suspension. I mean, if Notre Dame, just look at Notre Dame's history, self-imposed anything doesn't really seem to matter to the NCAA. Now, maybe it does now because there's new leadership and all that, but they can impose the 3 games all they want. I think it's going to end up being more.
That'd be great
at some point. I think he's going to end up serving some kind of suspension next year as well from the NCAA. I don't think that this is going to be good enough for them.
It's just so mishandled.
Yeah, and it's just a big PR blunder. And again, if Jim Harbaugh had just been more forthright and been up front with this whole thing, he wouldn't be in this situation.
It would be an old story that we wouldn't even be talking about, is what it would be. I mean, it may not even have made it into the press, to be honest. It's just ridiculous. It's just so Jim Harbaugh. Yep. Now he's going to be named like Coach of the Year because he overcame the suspension and all these things. It's like, okay,
but you're exactly right. Like the 3 games that he's going to sit for, I mean, they should be able to throw anybody out there.
Seriously,
win those games.
I could not know a single play in the playbook. You give me the headset, I bet you I could win those 3 games with the roster that he has and the guys are going up against.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not hard.
Yep.
Anyway.
Fill in the blank, Vince. The thing that has most impacted the relevance of college football's regular season is blank.
This was really hard for me. There's a couple different directions that I really wanted to go, and I wasn't sure which direction to go with this. I'm gonna say money. And I know that sounds like a jaded answer, but that's what it is, because money is what broke the bowl season, right? And the bowl season was directly impacted by the regular season. And then they had a 2-team, championship. Regular season still important. Got to make more money. Now you go to a 4-teamer. Okay. Little less important on the regular season. Next year, a 12-gamer or a 12-teamer, excuse me. It's because it's all about the money. So I think it's money. That's my fill in the blank.
That's a good answer. And really, you were tying the money to the playoff, but of course, realignment and all this conference expansion. See, I think this is going to impact the relevance even more than expanding the playoff because of what you're doing to these conferences, and you're tearing apart rivalries and you're moving teams around the country, but it's still all for what you're talking about. It's all for money. So maybe that should have been my answer. But I just, when you look with these teams that are all going to be moving next year, you're going to have teams that could have been college football playoff contenders in the conferences that they were in, but they're going to become a lot of also-rans once they get into these overbloated Big Ten, SEC, and even the Big 12 now. And now maybe some of these teams will still have some opportunities in the Big 12 since you have Oklahoma and Texas leaving, even though it was TCU that got to the playoff last year, but you're tearing apart rivalries. You're
Yeah.
just the impact that all of this is having. But again, it all goes back to money. So I think you're right. I think money is the answer to it. Whichever way you want to trace it, that's ultimately the answer to what's tearing apart the regular season. And I'm gonna be curious to see how people feel about the regular season here in a couple of years after we have this expanded college football playoff.
It's not your dad's college football. It's not even my college football anymore. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the days of sitting back and just watching college football all day on New Year's Day. You know what I mean? Like that was a thing. That, believe it or not, that used to be a thing. That's not a thing anymore. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And the bowl games used to be so good. You would want to watch these bowl games because they all had implications to different things. I mean, and now it's just, if it's not the Final Four, if it's not the college football playoff, it just doesn't mean a whole lot. Like even the New Year's 6 games, they can give it a special name, but even those don't mean a whole lot anymore.
True. Very true. Like you said, it's not even your college football, let alone your grandpa's college football or your dad's college football, because
like, what's the Rose Bowl going to be?
I used to love rolling out of bed on New Year's Day and know that there was a game that was going to start, and within about a half an hour, there was going to be another game on top of it, and I could flip back and forth, and the next thing you know, you're just laying there all day in a pool of your own whatever, and you're watching college football all day. It was great.
I'm telling you.
No more.
Like I used to watch the parade, make my wife happy, and then as soon as the parade was over, boom, college football. Like you're jumping right into it, and it was like, hey, I watched the parade with you. I'm watching football now.
Yep. Christopher's right. New Year's Day used to be the best, but it just hasn't had that feel in a long time because of all this proliferate. Because again, you'd get these major bowl games back to back, all on New Year's Day, and then they decided, well, we can make more money by putting them all in prime time and spreading them out to different days, and then it became what you're talking about. Over time, BCS championship, 14 playoff, 12-team playoff. So it is what it is, I guess. We still get the privilege of talking about and covering college football. So we can live with that.
This is true,
I guess. Guys and gals, we appreciate you being here today. As always, hit the like button on your way out. We've got more Notre Dame Navy talk tomorrow. I think Jesse's going to be in. He's been a little bit under the weather. He actually had to go to the ER this morning and got some IV antibiotics. Yeah. He got this crazy rash on his leg. No idea where it came from. And he went to like a MedPoint type thing in Cleveland yesterday. And they said, well, you need to go to the ER. So the ER they sent him to was like full of people when he got there. And then he found out that his insurance, they were out of network. So he went to a different ER this morning, got right in. But trying to figure it out. It's crazy. So hopefully he's feeling better tomorrow. And he'll be here and we'll talk some Notre Dame Navy and some mailbag as well. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, baby.
Then we got Countdown to Kickoff pregame show coming up later this week. We're all three going to be here for that. I'm excited for that. I don't think we did that much last year, but we'll all get to
That's
do it.
true.
You and me and Jeff. So looking forward to that. All right. Have a good one. Thanks again to Bill Wagner for joining us earlier today. Gideon, much appreciated. I'm sure he will appreciate it as well. Sounds like he's doing okay, but again, it's a little bit of a mystery. What exactly caused all this? So we'll talk to you tomorrow, though, on IB Nation Sports Talk.